Good evening. Thank you for joining us for the Calf Canyon Hermits Peak Fire Community Meeting for Wednesday, June 1st. My name is Chris Barth. I'm a Public Information Officer with Pacific Northwest Team 2. Before we get started, I'd like to give folks a little bit of an update on the current stats for the fire. The Calf Canyon Hermits Peak Fire is currently 315,830 acres. Containment is at 54% today. And as of this morning, we had 3,080 personnel assigned to the Hermits Peak Calf Canyon Fire. Of note, we have 648 miles of perimeter, and that includes, we also have 356 of those miles of the perimeter are containment lines. So again, that 54%, just over half of the perimeter is contained at this point. Tonight, we have a very full agenda. So all of our speakers, we have a wonderful planned lineup of speakers for you tonight. And with that, we're going to begin with Pacific Northwest Team 2 Operations Section Chief, Kyle Cannon.
Good evening. I'm Kyle Cannon, Operations Section Chief for Pacific Northwest Team 2. So on the North Zone, we rode out 4 solid days of red flag weather conditions with strong south winds and really had no fire perimeter growth at all. So that's a strong testament to all the hard work that's going out on the line with the firefighters. So appreciate that. But we have had more of an easterly component over the last 24 hours. So our focus has been on this northwest side of the fire. At this time, we've got hot shot crews still focusing here on this piece to the west of Angostura, along that direct fire edge, holding that, securing it, and making sure that stays in place. Likewise, we have a hot shot crew working their way south towards Serpent Lake, utilizing UAS, which is unmanned aircraft systems or a drone, to monitor that area, as well as use IR to identify hot spots in that area. So things are going well in there. We also have some additional concerns about, with this easterly wind, that we could have fire moving out to the west. So we're looking at some additional contingency lines that take off from Ripley Point, first one, and works its way down towards the monastery just outside of Las Mochas. And then we also are scouting some additional lines that would work their way down towards the Rio de las Trampas. And the idea is to keep fire from, if we needed to have an option to keep fire from moving to the west towards Peñasco, Llano, and El Valle. So that's in the works as well. Moving back over here to the east along the 518 corridor, we still have crews and engines in there holding along the highway there. Things are going well. We're holding that with no problems. Moving over above Chacon, we do have some additional smoke that we're still seeing up here on the hillside, so we have crews in there along that hand line, knocking that out and getting that secure. And then we still have a strong presence here in the 121 corridor down through Holman, Cleveland, towards Mora, and also over in the 434 corridor, Guadalupita, and farther south to make sure that that's staying in place and keeping a good eye on that area. We are also here in the south beginning to look at suppression repair activities, including chipping and some of those kind of activities. So we're starting to work there. And then moving farther to the north, with the alleviating weather conditions, we were able to get back to work with our heavy equipment on those indirect lines. So the piece that ties in from the Sardinias Canyon Fire to Luna, we worked on that today and should be close on that. And then also our indirect line there to the north of the Rio de la Olla. We continue working on that, making good progress today. And then also our indirect north-south line that ties into Highway 64, we continued that work. So moving forward on all fronts today, as well with the additional thunderstorm activity that's potential. We got an extra focus on initial attack and supporting the cooperators in the area to respond to new fires. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kyle, for that update on the north zone of the fires. Next, we're going to go down to the south zone with Southwest Incident Management Team 2 Operations Section Chief, Rocky Gilbert.
Good evening, Rocky Gilbert. I'm going to go through a few photos to kind of give folks an idea of what things look like out on the ground, and then I'll get into what our plan is to respond to what that looks like. So this is kind of the first thing I want folks to understand is up in this Pecos wilderness area, this is what the blowdown looks like. So it appears that they've had a microburst that came through. There's thousands of acres of blowdown that are through this country, which is one of the reasons why we are not going direct in this country. It would just take too long and be too much exposure for our firefighters to try to go direct and build fire line through this, doing a direct method. Okay, next picture. So this is kind of a photo looking from Hamilton Mesa back towards the fire. Again, here's the activity. You get a view of what the country looks like. Can kind of see where some of the dead down, what that standing timber looks like, but just kind of a feel for the fuels that are out in that country in the Pecos wilderness. This is some of the work that we've been doing using the scoopers. They've been doing some checking action for us that's allowing us to get our indirect line put in place so that on our terms we can implement a burn plan to be successful and hopefully stopping this fire from moving further west towards the Pecos River. Okay, this next set of slides, we're going to talk about the structure protection that we're doing up in the areas of Geronimo, Cowles, Grouse Mountain Summer Homes, and those other communities that are kind of north of Tres Lagunas, basically, in preparation of fire coming in here. So this is what we call a pumpkin. Eventually there'll be a pump that's put into this to be able to suck water out and to run sprinkler systems around homes. Next photo. So this is some of the work that the firefighters do. They take the hose, they run them from the pumps, they put them around the houses. Next slide will show they connect into these sprinkler systems, and that's what they use to sprinkler the outside perimeter of the homes that are around and close to the fire before hopefully before fire gets there. So that's a lot of the work that the firefighters are doing. This one is the hand lines that they put in. Again, trying to put some work in to protect homes that are kind of be where fire may end up. Eventually we'll end up plumbing that with fire hose as well, with potentially sprinkler systems or just nozzles that firefighters will work. This is some of the other work that they're doing. So this is dead down material that is around homes. So they're going in, they're cutting that stuff up, they're cleaning it out, moving it further away, giving us that defensible space that we like to talk about in preparation for a fire potentially moving into that area. Again, they're going in, they're looking at, so this is directly adjacent to a home. What those firefighters are doing, the homeowner has not moved the firewood away from the home. So again, some of that fire-wise stuff that they're trying to do is take that firewood, any of that flammable material that's directly against a home, they're going to move it out probably 30 to 50 feet away, again giving them some defensible space in case fire is to impinge that home or get close enough that they have a chance to be able to extinguish any fire. Okay, then there's one video. So this is from today. This is looking into the South Fork of Bear Creek. And it just shows you as the fire is moving down. Basically, the flame is on the north side of Bear Creek, backing down towards the south. And then the vegetation that you would see on the south side is what leads up to some of our lines that we're putting in up here towards, this is Elk Mountain. That Bear Creek sits right down in here. So this fire's edge as it backs down into there. The concerns that we would have is once it crosses that stream, it would have potential to run back up towards our containment lines. And so what we've been doing to prep ourselves for this, along with the homes that we've been prepping, we're looking at putting in this indirect piece of line, starting up Elk Mountain, going down in towards the communities here of Torero, and then working a trail system going up towards Iron Gate, and then basically working from Iron Gate, using the trail systems up into the Pecos Wilderness towards Beatty Cabin, which is where we have a camp called Beatty's Camp. We have about 200 plus firefighters out there, which includes hotshot. It's mostly hotshot crews that are out there. And they're prepping this line, and then they're going to be looking at taking some more line that goes from Beatty's Camp along the trail system up into that Hamilton Mesa area. Like Kyle had talked about, we're also looking at some contingency lines that would take us up to Jicarilla Peak and some of those other areas that would be barriers to fire spread because of the rock that's up there. So that's the main work that we've got going on. Our intent is not to burn until we have everything in place. We do have plans that if we get pushed, that we can start the burning operation in order to be defensive, but we prefer to be in an offensive mode as things go forward. So we're going to continue the prep. We've got a couple folks that are working on that ignition plan, how we're going to do it, what the timing's going to be. It'll involve helicopters and crews on the ground in a coordinated effort to make sure that we have a high probability of success of being able to get specifically this corner around all of the communities buttoned up over the next few days, probably looking at into Monday, Tuesday, depending again if we get the right conditions and we've got everything completed. So the rest of the fire, just to let folks know what's going on, from Elk Mountain pretty much down to what we call a branch break here south of Berea's Peak. That stuff has been, fire lines are put in, we're in mop up and patrol stage, and we're even going to be able to start doing some fire suppression repair down in that southern part of the fire. On the east side of the fire, we also have repair groups going in doing suppression repair. And so what that means is we have heavy equipment such as bulldozers and excavators that are going in, finding where dozer lines were put in to protect homes or to put in fire line, and they're pulling that stuff back in with the intent of reducing the opportunity for erosion when the rains come. So that work is going to continue all the way from Upper Gascon, all the way down to San Geronimo, San Pablo, and then as the fire continues around, we'll continue that work until it's all complete. So that's what we've got going on in the South Zone of stuff. Thank you for your time tonight.
All right, thank you very much, Rocky. Appreciate that. Thank you for the visuals. Also appreciate the emphasis on the coordination with both your reports and that of Kyle's on the western portion of these fires. Next, we're going to hear from incident meteorologist Tom Bird.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Tom Bird, incident meteorologist. I'm one of 4 meteorologists here with the teams on the fire, and so we've got quite a large contingency of us supporting these teams with their efforts and keeping those firefighters safe as it relates to fire weather concerns. I think it's important that before we kind of talk about what's happening now and then what's to be expected with our forecasts in the near term is we kind of take a real quick look backwards and kind of see why we're at the situation we're at now with this fire being so large and so difficult to contain over the last couple of months. And so we go to our first visual or graphic here. And what this shows us is the percent of normal precipitation across the southwest United States for the last 2 months and the last 3 months. And what you'll notice is we're in those deep red areas, and that's signifying that within the last 2 months, we've only gotten like 5 to 10% of normal precipitation. And if you go back all the way through March, we've only had like 25% of normal precipitation. So we've had a quite dry spring, and before that, a very dry winter with not a lot of snow up in the mountains. So that kind of set the stage. And if we go to our next graphic, this is our drought monitor centered on New Mexico. And we're in the deepest of the red there on that map. There are 4 different categories of drought, 1 through 4. We're in category 4, which is exceptional. So really it doesn't get any drier or any more into a drought category than what we see now. So that kind of sets the stage for where we find ourselves with the start of the fire and just how dry it is out there, not just atmospherically, but then, with the soils and the fuels themselves also. So a very dry winter, a very dry spring. You saw those lack of precipitation, those deficits according to what normal looks like. And in fact, the last rain we've gotten on the fire was back in May, the 24th and 25th. We did get 1 little shot of moisture move in, and we did see some storms on the west side of the San Luis Cristo Crest over in that Pecos Valley area. We only got like 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch. On the east side of the crest, over on the Las Vegas side, they got from 1/2 an inch to 3/4 of an inch. So we have had moisture, but what that serves is as a kind of a notice for us that even though we do get these temporary influxes of moisture, it just doesn't provide enough relief with the state of drought and the deficit of precipitation that we're running, that this only gives us a minor break, a brief interlude before we go right back into the typical dry, windy, warm spring fire weather pattern that we anticipate and expect this time of year. We're beginning of June right now. Fire season lasts through the first week of July on average, so we still have 5 weeks ahead of us of a more typical pattern where we're going to be dry, windy, and breezy. So we'll go on now and we'll start talking about what's happening now. So we'll go to our first graphic, and this was the weather chart for today. And what you'll notice here across New Mexico, and I have the area where our fire is circled, is a front. We had a cold front move in. It's a backdoor front, meaning it came in from the plains and it moved west across the fire. That brought a lot of Gulf moisture into the area. And so what you're seeing in this green stippled area right here is areas where we expect there to be showers and precipitation. And in fact, there are some pretty heavy thunderstorms, very severe, in the southeast corner of the state of New Mexico. And we actually did just have a shower move just south of Taos towards Eagle Pass in Colfax and Taos County, but it missed the fire. It just passed just north of it. They said there was one lightning strike up there on the north zone. But down here to the south, we haven't seen any of that today. So let's move to tomorrow, and this will give us a look at what we're expecting for tomorrow. Tonight, we're going to get a reinforcement of that southeast push that will give us more of that Gulf moisture moving in from the south and east and over across the fire into the Sangre de Cristos where the fire is. And what that does for us, that will deepen our moisture. And what that means is that now we have more fuel for showers and thunderstorms. So tomorrow we're upping the chances of showers and thunderstorm activity over the fire to about 40 to 50%. Today we only had it at 15%, meaning our idea, our thoughts on that would be very slim. But tomorrow we're looking at scattered coverage. And although we don't expect a whole lot of rainfall area-wide on average, some of these cells can bring pretty heavy showers and thunderstorms and rainfall. And so with that, there is that potential that there'll be local isolated areas of burn scar flooding. So we're going to have to be really mindful, watch radar all day and watch for that. The other issue, or two more issues, and that's this firefighter safety and fire behavior, is the potential for dry lightning or even just any kind of lightning. That's a personnel safety issue. Anybody out there in the forest, in the field, can't get good can't secure good coverage from that. So we have to watch that. The other thing is these thunderstorms tend to put out outflows. That's strong winds, and they're erratic and they're gusty, and they come from any other direction but what you would expect. And so that's an issue that we'll have to watch for too. That could actually push fire across containment lines if that happens. So let's go to the next one, and this is going to be Friday now. We're going to look at Friday's chart. And Friday, we're still within this moist air mass. And so we still have those chances of showers and thunderstorms across the area. Another chance probably right at 40% across the fire. So basically what we're looking at right now is a 3-day interlude or a break from typical fire weather season with this moist influx and these chances of showers and thunderstorms. Really good relative humidity. That's a measure of the moisture in the atmosphere. We use that to determine how dry or wet it is. And we've had really high numbers since last night, and we continue to see that for tomorrow and Friday. Let's go one more slide, and this will be the precipitation forecast for these 3 days, today, tomorrow, and Friday into Saturday morning. And I circled where we're at, and I drew an arrow down to about how much we think we'll get. And so you can see we're on the very low end of the rainfall spectrum. So even with 3 days of rainfall potential, we really aren't looking at a lot of rain. There'll be some isolated areas that may get heavy rain, but overall, it's not going to be a heavy rain event. It's not going to provide much, if any, relief. So the last slide I have is our fire weather matrix. It's a tool that we use here to keep situational awareness for the overhead team, for the firefighters, so that they can get a week's worth of weather at a glance. And we color code it based on what the conditions are for fire behavior. So green is what you want to see because that means moderated fire weather conditions. Red is those extreme conditions that we kind of hope not to see. So we're in that period now from today and tomorrow with a lot of green boxes, meaning cool temperatures, high moisture, chances of showers and thunderstorms, a lot of cloud cover. All those are beneficial for us. We move from Friday into Saturday, we start seeing those red boxes creep back in. That's when we shift that pattern back to the typical southwest pattern, which brings us our warmer, our drier, and our windier conditions. And you can see that. If you look at these elements, the average temperature through the week gets warmer. The relative humidity through the week gets lower both in the afternoon minimums and the morning maximums. And then the winds, you can see we have stronger winds as we go into the weekend and next week. So that's kind of the weather we have now. We're going into a short little break where we haven't been seeing favorable conditions, but those won't last. And any rain we get will be minimally beneficial for just a short period of time. And remember, still 5 weeks of fire weather season. Thank you.
Update on the weather, and obviously we know the weather plays a critical role in the fire behavior. So next we're going to hear from Southwest Incident Management Team 2 Fire Behavior Analyst Dan Pearson.
Good afternoon, everybody. Dan Pearson here, back again. Glad to be back, actually, because there's a lot more black on the map from the last time we were here about 2 weeks ago, and we actually have green blocks on the map on the forecast, which is fantastic. So we just heard from Tom Bird about the moderated weather that we've been having over the last 5-6 days. And with that is a corresponding moderation in the fire behavior. You probably notice, I'm sure everybody wakes up and takes a look at maps every morning and says, oh, how much did the fire grow yesterday? You notice we've only picked up about 3,000 acres over the last 4 or 5 days, which is excellent compared to earlier when we were here about a month ago, we're picking up 30,000 acres a day. And we are happy with that, and that is a very good thing. However, you probably are also wondering, well, with this rain, all these green blocks, will this put the fire out? Simple answer, no, it won't. And it is giving us time, but it's also not enough. Tom really explained that very succinctly, but I'm going to explain a little bit more of the why. So, we have a cumulative drought. It has been long-term, and when we were here about a month ago and up to about a week and a half ago, what we were seeing is a weather-dominated fire system. The weather was pushing the fire. We were having multiple red flag days. I think we had 29 out of 35 days were red flag. We're getting winds gusting up to 60 miles an hour, single-digit relative humidity. I don't need to tell you, it was a rough time. But in that kind of environment, the weather dominated the fire behavior. The weather pushed the fire in specific directions. Now the weather is moderated, but it hasn't changed the fuel conditions. I look at 1,000-hour fuels as a characteristic of fire potential. 1,000-hour fuels are the dead and downed logs and branches on the ground that are about 4 to 8 inches in diameter, really 5 to 8. It's about the size of a 4x4. And all that dead stuff that Rocky showed you photos of, it's only sitting around 7% to 10% fuel moisture. Kiln dried lumber that you buy in the lumber store, I talked about this about 3 weeks ago, is around 17%. So a couple days of more moist conditions is not enough to change that. For a 1,000-hour fuel, if you just sat it in a tub of water, it would take 47 days to completely acclimate. So 3 days of higher relative humidity, it's fantastic because it slows the fire down. It is nowhere near enough to stop it. So with that, moving to the map, we've really only had 2 areas of fire progression over the last 4 or 5 days. What Rocky was talking about over in Bear Canyon, the South Fork of Bear Canyon, fire is moving up from the crest and has slopped below the crest edge and it's entered the headwaters of that South Fork of Bear Canyon. The bigger concern for me is in the old Trampas fire scar, this 2002 Trampas fire. There's 3 different drainages that run through that and work their way from the crest all the way down to Mora Flats. And in that fire scar, there's a lot, it's completely chock full of the dead and down material that, not what Rocky was showing you that had the live component, that blowdown. That blowdown is a little bit further west over near Hamilton Mesa and also some areas north of it. In the Trampas fire scar, it's primarily just dead and down material from 20 years ago. And that dead and down material has been curing for the last 90 days. So even though it's been high relative humidity, got some rain showers, maybe got a tenth of an inch, quarter inch of rain last week, might even get some more rain tomorrow. But that's not enough for those 1,000-hour and 10,000-hour size class fuels. So the fire is just continuing to chew its way through that. Basically, it's just jackstrawed. And so direct flame contact, the fire is just continuing to move down slope. And it's, even with the moderated conditions, it's been picking up about a quarter mile per day, even with these conditions. And it is just really, really thick in there. So this is going to continue progressing slow, but continuing to progress over the next several days. As we move into the weekend, moving into Friday into Saturday, we're starting to get some red blocks. That's going to start to accelerate the fire behavior. The good side of that is we're looking at westerly winds, west-west, west-southwest, west, moving into the future. And a westerly wind tends to push the heat and the smoke and embers back upslope, so further slowing the fire down, but not stopping it. It also adds more oxygen, which allows the fire to just keep feeding on itself. So if you were wondering why we can't just go in and stop it, there's a lot of fuel out there. It's really rough, really tough, really rugged, and really inaccessible. There's a reason it's a wilderness. And why we have these contingency lines, because we don't think that the fire is going to stop on its own, and we still have to figure out a place to protect the values at risk, including the wilderness character and the watersheds. So it's buying us time, but it's not going to stop, and we're going to be accelerating in about another 72 hours. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate the fire behavior outlook. And I see that a lot of folks in the comments in the chats, folks are glad to see you back. I think your pointer is trending on Twitter at this point. Next, we're going to hear from Mora County Under Sheriff Americ Padilla.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. So, as Dan stated, from when he was here till now, you can see on this big map over here, all the black line that's here. Awesome thing. You know, there for a while I had stated, I don't know when we were going to see that black line coming up, but it's here now. And hopefully we get to see the black line go all the way around the fire. I'm praying sooner than later. So, you know, keep your fingers crossed. Let's keep doing what we're doing. Being safe out there, the boots on the ground, the team, everybody here that's working hard and diligently and tirelessly. Let's keep that good work up until we get that black all the way around the map. If I could refer your attention over here to the polygons on this map on this side, as everybody's pretty familiar with the ready, set, go method. So this is the first time I'm going to state that, you know, it's actually a good thing to go backwards in this time. I know we say, you know, moving backwards is not a good thing, but in this instance, it is. So right now, and as you can see in the polygons here in the Mora County area, a lot of them have changed from green to red, meaning that, you know, a lot of them are in the ready status, except for the exceptions of Sierra Bonita, Chacon. All those areas are still in the set. And the reason why they're still in the set status is just due to the nature that there's still active fire, there's still active smoke, pretty heavy fire personnel, and just still a lot of boots on the ground in those areas. So we're leaving those areas still on set, but just because they're on set, like Sheriff Lopez and I have stated, and everybody have stated before, just because they're on a set status doesn't mean, you know, let's get complacent. No, by no means. Even on the red statuses, on the polygons that are still in the red, let's not get complacent either, because we're still not out of the woods. You know, we still got a long fight ahead of us. It's been a long journey, but, you know, the fight's not over. So again, in the areas that are still have moved back from the go and the set that are on the ready, even though, keep your head on the swivel, you know, keep your eye open. If you don't see anything or you see something that's out of the norm, report it. Even for the section up in Chacon, the Sierra Bonita area, if you guys see something out there, report it immediately so we could address the issue. On the roadblock status, there are no roadblocks currently in the Mora County area. So if you need to go into Las Vegas, or if you need to go through Mora County up into Taos, Angel Fire, Ocate, all those different areas, you guys can move freely around the county without running into any roadblocks currently right now. A lot of people have been contacting me and asking me, Americ, what are we going to be doing or what are the steps that we're going to be taking for after the fire? So, and those are very good questions and concerns that have been brought to my attention. As of right now, I know our county commission, our county manager, those individuals have been working diligently with the surrounding agencies that have been coming into Mora County to offer their assistance. So I know that ball is rolling. I apologize, I don't have the specifics to those questions that have been brought to my attention, but if you need any questions answered, feel free to go to them and they'll be able to direct you in the right direction. And at that being said, if you guys have any other questions, comments, or concerns, I'll be sticking around for me to address those. Again, thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys.
Thank you very much, Emmerich. Next, we're going to go down to San Miguel County Sheriff Chris Lopez.
And good evening, everybody. I'd just like to take the opportunity once again to thank the incident management team for the great work that they're doing in really trying to get people back in and trying to deal with the fire on that skyline area. It's really difficult terrain for those that know the area, very steep and rugged, and a lot of fuel to deal with. So as they continue to do that, you know, I know in discussions today, they really took the time to kind of explain what they're dealing with in terms of weather, in terms of fuel loading, in terms of topography, just to kind of give you a better understanding, and that I'm really appreciative of that, because I've been getting a lot of those same questions from people, individuals, especially up in the canyon, in the Pecos Canyon. You know, there's a lot of people that have called and don't feel like they're in any kind of a threat. But as was explained by operations today, that fire does continue to back down. And I believe day before yesterday, when I gave my brief, I also talked about how I've watched the fire kind of back over in the Mineral Hill area all the way to that Barrias area, and even Commissary Canyon area, which you know, it did it over the course of several days, just like it's doing right now, backing into that Bear Canyon area over the course of several days, and just with the really tough topography and terrain and fuel loading, it just continues to keep moving. And so for that reason, you know, it's imperative that we continue to keep people out of those areas. But on a good note, you know, I know we're talking about opening up some areas if everything goes well over the next operational shift, and hopefully tomorrow. And specifically, those areas that we are talking about is Cow Creek, and El Macho and Dalton Canyon. So those would be downgraded to a set status if everything goes good throughout the night. So we do that sometime tomorrow morning, and that's some really good news. I know we've been getting a lot of calls from those residents, but I just want to reiterate, you know, that you know, we still have another operational shift to go through, and also I want to let people know that those areas above that, like operations was mentioning in the brief, there's still work that needs to be continued there, and for that reason, those areas above that are going to continue to be closed. So just bear with us. I know it's hard and difficult to be out of your residence, but they're you know, primary goal is safety, and we're not in a position yet to open that back up. So I appreciate that. Also, we did pull some people out of that Gallinas Big Pine corridor. That's Calf Canyon subdivision. If everything goes good tonight, that's another area that we're considering opening in the morning. So that'd be good news for those residents. And we'll be downgrading that back to a set status if everything goes well tonight. So I just really wanted to give people an update on that, as I know I've been getting a lot of questions. And again, like I tell you each and every day that I report, you know, we have constant communication, and we really look closely at all these things, and we want to make sure that we can get people in when it's safe to do so, but we don't want to keep people out any longer than we have to. So you know, just be patient and bear with us, as I definitely staying on top of it, as well as the incident management team and all our other law enforcement partners. So thank you for that. Touching a little bit more on recovery, I know Amric touched on it a little bit. I can tell you that the county is working on a declaration. I believe should be done Friday. And that's for cleanup for debris removal for homes specifically. There's been a lot of discussion for that. We're getting to a point where we're really close to get some movement on that. I know you have Mr. Garcia presenting here in a little bit to talk more about that. But I know I've been reporting to you all that we've been having meetings and preparing for those operations, and we're almost to a point now where we're gonna get moving on that. So I just ask for you to continue to be patient. I know a lot of people are wanting to get stuff moving, and we're just about there. I know we put out some literature from DHSEM specifically on that matter and safety precautions. Also, I know that there's a lot of, in terms of debris removal, especially when you're talking about residences, there's a lot of toxic materials that you have to watch out for. You have to be able to separate those materials. I mean, there's a lot to it. And so you'll be hearing more about that here in a little bit, but just be patient until everything's in place so we can make sure and get that done correctly and get you the support that you need. Also, we've been working, as you heard from weather, there's a slight chance for rain. There's a potential for flooding. And as we continue to move closer to monsoon season, that potential is going to continue to rise. I know we're working really closely with our state and federal partners in terms of pre-positioning the equipment and resources in terms of dealing with that and dealing with what might be coming. And the planning as well is being completed as we speak, and we're hopefully going to be getting out to the communities in those areas that will or may be affected here really shortly. And so I just want to report on that because I want you to know that we're working diligently to make sure that we have things in place to support you all in those times. So there's a lot of work, a lot of planning, a lot of operations going on each and every day, and I want to assure you that work is being completed each and every day as we continue to move through this disaster. And one other thing I wanted to touch on before I close, I know I get a little long-winded sometimes, but is going back to what the team was talking about. Is we're dealing, and I know early on in the fire it was addressed quite a few times, but there was talk about books being written about the type of fire weather that they're seeing and the fire behavior that they're seeing. And I know there was I think one day where we even saw a run of 18 miles, and it's just stuff that it's really it's a disaster, and they're saying it's the worst disaster we've seen in the state's history. Whether that's confirmed or not, I don't know, but it's definitely the worst that I've seen. So I say that because I want you to understand just the complexity and the severity of what we're dealing with, and why I ask you to be patient. It's a lot. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheriff Lopez. As Sheriff Lopez mentioned, we have from New Mexico Environment Department, Peter J. Garcia, Sr., joining us.
Good evening, everybody. Buenas tardes. My name is Peter J. Garcia, Sr., and I'm a native Northern New Mexican, born, raised, and still living in the area. And I work at the New Mexico Environment Department. And my role here today is to inform you that there is a team, a debris management task force team that has been comprised and has representatives from your local, state, and federal government agencies. And just as Sheriff Lopez stated, we're awaiting the disaster declarations from Mora County and San Miguel County to be sent up to the state level, and an executive order issued by the governor so that what's called the private property debris removal program can be fully implemented, where the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency goes in to assess and remove all of the household hazardous waste and the asbestos containing material. And that would be phase one, and phase two would be the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers would be removing the remaining material, and all debris would be disposed of at a proper landfill. Although with that, the rights of entry document would need to be signed by the citizen, allowing the government to go in and assist you with debris cleanup with no out-of-pocket cost at all whatsoever. And we're asking folks to please be patient with us, and these things are moving quite diligently. And again, this team is comprised of Mora County, San Miguel County, New Mexico Environment Department, Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and also the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And additionally, we have also been have assistance from the California Governor Office of Emergency Management as a liaison to assist New Mexico in this effort for debris removal. And we ask folks to please be diligent. We're hoping to have additional information issued by the end of this week, beginning of next, so we can begin to have that information disseminated further. And also, we're here to assist, and we're here to help out. Again, we ask that you please be patient for that information to be disseminated. Furthermore, I'd offer my sincere condolences to all the citizens and residents affected by the fires, and thank you to the men and women of the firefighters and the incident management for all their efforts. And thank you for your evening. I appreciate it, and have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garcia. Next, we're going to be hearing from Colfax County Sheriff Leonard Baca.
Good evening, everyone. This is Sheriff Baca with Colfax County. Some good news this evening after our meetings with the emergency management team and our county emergency manager. We were able to move the remaining communities in Colfax County back into normal status. So that was really good news today during those meetings with operations. With that being said, I just want everybody to still be aware. We still have fire camp in Eagle Nest. We have lots of firefighters and equipment still working in the area, working on those additional contingency lines in our area. Also today, my office was contacted, so FEMA is in the area in Angel Fire, and they are located at the Chisholm Realty. They were there today, and I believe they'll be there tomorrow. For anybody that has questions or needs to go by and speak to them, that's where they're located. I just, again, want to express my thanks to the incident management teams, all the firefighters, all of the law enforcement partners, and local agencies that have been involved in all of this and getting us to where we are today. Keep up the good work, and thank you. And everybody, please stay safe.
Thank you very much, Sheriff Baca. We appreciate your report, and great news that we were able to reduce the evacuation levels in your county. Next, we're going to hear from Taos County Sheriff Jerry Hogarth.
Good evening, Taos County. We've got just a few things to cover. I know this meeting's already dragging on. I promised to keep my part less than an hour, so how about that? This area here in Angostura, the 518 corridor has been downgraded to red. It doesn't reflect it on this map yet, but it will by tomorrow's, and we're real pleased about that. Other areas are going to also remain here in red. And you heard Kyle mention there's going to be some firing activities down on this flank of the fire. It's going to produce some smoke. You're probably even going to potentially see a plume in the next few days, and the concern is the smoke, air quality moving into that area, as well as fire apparatus that are still going to be moving along 518 corridor and Highway 73 corridor in there. So be aware of that. Give them room. You know, drive slow, pay attention while you go through those areas. The other good news is this area up in Taos Canyon, all of this red shaded box has been downgraded to gray preparedness status. The communities via Escondido, a lot of good work has been going on in there by homeowners and others getting more defensible space around the home. So we're very happy we're able to move that down from red to gray for preparedness. All other areas in Taos County that have a strong urban interface, those need to stay in gray. Preparedness. There's still time. Now is when you need to be moving ahead with getting the firewood away, just like you saw in the video. Get those firewood away from your house. Make your homes more defensible. Get the grass cut. Get the limbs hauled away and stuff. A lot of good work's been done up in this area and the greater Penasco area for the preparedness. Keep that up, folks. That's what we need to see. All right. The last thing I want to mention is we do still have a shelter operating here in Taos. It's at the Ag Center. There's food, clothing, supplies for those that have been displaced and need a place to go. We encourage you to come by, pick up what you need. And if you need a place to stay, that is still open. Thanks, and I'll stick around for questions.
Thank you very much, Sheriff. Appreciate that report, and wonderful news to hear some downgraded evacuation levels in your county as well. Finally, for tonight, we are going to hear from Pacific Northwest Team 2 Incident Commander Tom Kurth.
All right, thank you, Chris. And if we look at this map here, you can see this line here. That's simply a political divide between the North Zone, where Pacific Northwest Team 2 is, and then south of this line is where the Southwest Incident Management Team 2 is. And so that helps us just focus our operations, but in reality, we're all one unit here, and communications is obviously very critical here, but between the two of us, we have split the resources where approximately about 1,500 firefighters are up here, and 1,500 firefighters are focused on the operation south of that line. Now, that said, both teams have gone through transition recently, and that was during very critical fire weather, 4 or 5 days of red flag and fire weather watch, which is some of the most extreme conditions for us. And we both are considerably, well, I guess happy for the matter that all these lines up here are still in the same footprint they were before we came into those conditions there. So with that, we're going to see a switch in operational pace from simply holding an initial attack to going into advancing and holding line here, and also working on these contingency lines up to the north there. And so this heavy iron that we've had sitting due to these conditions is going to come out in full force here, so you'll see a considerable amount of pace picked up in these lines here, and then you'll start to see containment show up at the head of the fire there. So a lot of operational pace is going to be moving quickly here, and so we're fortunate to get these conditions that we can work in. With that, Chris, you want to take it back?
Thank you very much, Tom. Appreciate those remarks. And again, folks, we appreciate you joining us tonight for this virtual community meeting on the Hermits Peak Calf Canyon fire. As a reminder, we will be having a meeting again on Friday at the same time. For those that are watching it live, please remind your friends that might not be able to watch it live that they can watch the recording that's posted later. And as you heard, there have been some changes to the evac levels, and I encourage folks to look at the interactive evacuation map for updates to follow. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on Friday.